Um, so there we go. So we're going to review Twintania. We're going to use the Tessin Twin Tails visual guide for UCOP. I'm going to share this link in the VC chat for those of you who want to save it. It's a very wonderful resource. Like the Tessin Tails UCOP video guide is such a wonderful reference to work with. I also want to say, for the purposes of our event, if you want to study off of this video, um, power to you. Like it's really good to learn what goes on in UCOP. What I do want to say is, if you do use this video, please know that the strats that you see in the Test and Twin Tails video are based in EU. They are not one to one with the strats that we use for our purposes. So you will have to bear that in mind. If you want to use this video, you'll need to look at it and then make sure you study our raid plans so that you're consistent with what we're going to do um, with our event. So I just posted a link to the raid plan concerning Twintania. And again, I was able to pull it by being in the NAUR website. I navigated to the UCOP page and then scrolled down. We see here P1 Twintania raid plan. That's how I pulled it. So again, Test and Twin Tails video, really, really great. It is based on EU strats. We're doing NAUR raid plans, so please bear that in mind. So going into this, I'm gonna play back this video at half speed, and while this is going, um, we're we're gonna see a bit of setup. So right out the gate, this comes into play once you start progging into Bahamut, but it's general good setup. So what you'll typically see is, you'll see, as you can see here, a tank, a healer, a melee, or a melee, you know, fake melee, what have you, and a range player will line themselves up, as you can see here. And again, this comes into play later on in the Bahamut trios, because there's going to be positional requirements that we're going to see. Okay, so going from the start of Twintania, the main threat's going to pick up Twintania and bring her over to a marker. Again, please keep in mind this is EU strat, so please make sure to review the raid plan. Twintania will plummet the main threat. And please keep in mind the plummet is a conal, so if you are past the cardinal markers that we can see right here, you run into the risk of getting cleaved. So super duper important right out the gate when Twintania is getting ready at the start. She will hit the main threat with a conal. Now, what's going to happen is, after the cone, she's going to cast two things. She's going to randomly target a person that is not the main threat with a fireball stack, and then at the same time, she's going to begin casting Twister. So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in here so we can see this a little better. So she's going to cast Twister. The way you kind of end up handling Twister is, you want to make sure that by the time this cast bar finishes, that you're in motion, that you're moving towards Twintania in this case, because there's going to be a little green puddle that baits under your feet. If you linger past the end of this cast bar, there's a very good chance you're going to sit in your green puddle and you're going to die, and there's also a risk of killing people. So very, very important. Throughout Tintania's phase, she is going to cast Twister. You need to pay attention to this cast bar, because when it fills up, it snapshots the position of where your character is, and it can lead to a bad time if you're not careful. So once again, she randomly targets somebody for a fireball stack, and then there's going to be a cast bar for Twister happening, and then this is really key. So Because of where we are with this content, one of the methods of preparing for Bahamut's transition is you do what's called an LB generation. In Stormblood, there's very specific things that you do in order to make sure you generate enough LB that you can use later in the fight. And this is applicable in Uwu, but to generate LB, what you'll typically do is you will make sure you have 5 people resolve that fireball stack. And you need to make sure that the people that are going to resolve that fireball stack have a GCD shield. For safety, the 2 party mitigation tools from the tanks. So if it's the Paladin, it's Divine Veil, for example. If it's the Gunbreaker, it's Heart of Light. Um, and you if it's a warrior, for example, it's Shake It Off. You want the tanks to throw out their party mitigation tools just to provide extra protection for the 5 people that are going to take this fireball stack. And then you typically want um, a, a party mitigation tool from the Fizz range. If it's a dancer, it's Shield Samba. If it's the Bard, it's Troubadour. It's Tactician if it's the Machinist. Because by doing so, as you can see here in the graphic, by having these party mitigation tools, when the stack resolves, people's health are going to drop low enough that it's going to trigger an event that's called um, surviving. Well, I call it surviving overkill, but effectively, um, it's the most significant and primary source of LB generation outside of doing mechanics. It By doing a 5-person stack at the start for Fireball, you also generate an event called critical healing. So when a person's health drops below a certain threshold, if they survive and then they receive a heal, that interaction will generate LB. So that's what you're going to see happen right here. I know I'm saying a lot of words right now, but I promise, to make a long story short, for that fireball stack, what you want to do is at the start, as you're pulling Twintania, you throw out party mitigation tools, a GCD shield, and you should be good to go. You want to avoid tools that will debuff the amount of damage that are going out that goes out from the source. So you can see here that Tessin is saying to avoid feint, to avoid reprisal, to avoid addle, to avoid dismantle, because these tools are important mitigations, but they reduce the amount of overall damage that you will get hit with. So I'm going to let this forward a little more. So by using the party mitigation tools, so like Caracal, Heart of Light, Shield Samba, it makes sure it's going to trigger those LB generation events that we want, so that when at the very start we take that fireball stack, it's going to give us almost a full R of LB. So as we can see here, the little diagram shows that the folks are clumping up together, and then they're going to take a fireball stack. This is also very important. So at the start, you kind of want to talk about, okay, so we need 5 people in the stack to make sure we generate enough LB, because if you have 6, you're not going to take sufficient damage. You kind of want to talk amongst yourselves to figure out, okay, who's going to stay out, because it's the two tanks typically stay out. Um, in a lot of PF scenarios, I usually see one of the healers, kind of volunteering to stay out unless they get marked. It's not a hard and fast rule, right? It's you just got to talk it out amongst yourselves to decide, okay, which person that's the non-tank stay out of that first stack, in order to ensure that there's going to be 5 people to generate that LB. So moving right along, we have that stack, and then I'm going to highlight this right here. So we have the stack going off, and then I want you to pay extra attention to the LB bar right here that I'm going to highlight, and then I'm gonna pull it back. As Twintania turns around and hits people with that stack, notice how much that LB bar jumped up right out of the gate. That's what you want to see. You'll typically end up almost with a full bar. The tanks are going to do a forced tank swap because Twintania is also going to do a cast called Death Sentence. That's a signal to the tanks to just voke off of each other and make sure that they swap, because as soon as Twintania hits the main threat with Death Sentence, that main threat is going to get debuffed with a slashing resistance down, as we can see here. And if that main threat, if that tank gets slapped by Twintania after getting this debuff, that poor tank's gonna die. So this is why it's a forced tank swap. So moving along, the other element that you want to pay attention to is Twintania's health. So she will transition phases based on how much health she has. In this case, at the start, on opener, your goal is to get her to 75% in order to get her to drop the neural link from where she is. Excuse me, my headset just died. Okay, there we go. You want to get her to 75%. She will drop a neural below 75%, excuse me. She will drop a neural link, and then the tanks are going to move and reposition her. So there you go. You see her do a plummet. The party is approaching 77, but notice something here. So in this very specific VOD, the party did not push her below 75%, and you notice somebody just got targeted for fireball stack. So what's going to happen here is she's going to repeat once again. She's going to cast Twister, Fireball, and you have to resolve it. You have to resolve Twister, you have to resolve Fireball, and then as soon as she hits 75%, she's going to lay her hatch. So there we go. She resolves that mechanic first. Mechanic is resolved. She is below the threshold. She is dropping her Neuralink. And the tanks are now, the main threat's now going to position her to the next point. Something that I want to say that is a good habit is, as a tank, what you'll often see is, especially among newer tanks, you'll typically see them position here, and you'll typically see them take Twintania immediately to the next marker. That's okay. Like, if you're not comfortable with moving her around, especially because she's very strict on the movement, you can do that. But what I would encourage you all to do, especially the tanks, is get into the habit of, when she lays down her Neuralink, position her, like, not necessarily immediately to the marker, but kind of like in the in-between space, because in the future, she's going to target the DPS for what's called hatch. And by positioning her not all the way to the marker, you're going to give a person opportunity to keep hitting her, and also position in a Neuralink. So that is something that I do want to say. If it, again, if you're not comfortable, you want to take her directly to the marker, that's okay. But it is generally good practice to kind of like take her in the in-between area, because it also makes the job of the person who has to bait um, a mechanical liquid health a lot easier if you put her in the in-between space. So I'm going to let this play out. So what's going to happen is, she's laid her hatch. She is getting position in between the next point right here. So you can see the tank hasn't taken her completely on the marker. And then she's going to start randomly. Well, let me take a step back. She's going to target a person who is farthest away from her. So as you can see over here, this machinist is getting targeted. And notice where this machinist is relative to where she is and relative to where everyone is. So Twintania is right here. Most of the party is right here. This machinist is out here at the outskirt. So it is important, as fizz range, that you keep a good distance away. to make sure that you bait her liquid hells. She's going to hit this machinist for 5 liquid hells. They are puddles that go out, and very simply, all the machinists will need to do is just to make sure that they're not sitting in a puddle for too long, and make sure that they maintain that distance from Titania to make sure that there's no issue with the baiting. I do really appreciate the folks who are in the chat responding to your questions. I do apologize. I am not um, responding. I also want to encourage, if the staff, if the volunteers, if you want to chime in on the VC, please feel free to interrupt me at any point in time, especially if there's an element that I'm leaving out. That's really crucial to keep in mind for the concept that we're going through. But again, so Machinist is farthest away from Twintania. She is so the machinist is going to bait these liquid hells, and it's going to be 5 of them. And then as that machinist finishes, somebody is going to get randomly target. Well, a person for now is going to get randomly targeted for a hatch. You'll know you're being targeted for a hatch if you have like these symbols around your character. And what this person's going to have to do is they're going to have to go into that hatch puddle. I'm sorry, into the Neuralink puddle. When that person takes that hatch, the hatch collides with the character. It's going to apply an etherical hypersensitivity debuff. Um, right now, what we're seeing is what's called the intercept method for resolving hatches, and it's very simple. So I'm going to pull up a video from a person named Flourishing Sorrow, really skilled player in UCOB. They made this wonderful video guide for the range players to have an understanding of how to do the intercept method if they get targeted for a hatch and they need to resolve it. So, you know, at the start, we see these mechanics with Twister and Fireball stack. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. As the range player, as the tank buster's going out, the death sentence going out, as you can see here from Flourish's POV, the tank once again is bringing Twintania kind of like in the in-between space, and the Fizz range in this case, Flourishing is positioning here. Flourishing is going to bait the liquid health such that their body will end up here, and then the Neuralink is going to be positioned here, so that if Flourishing is targeted for hatch, what a person can do is they can step inside this hatch, intercept the hatch on its path on the way to Flourishing, and help with that. So that's ultimately what you'll see in the testing guide and what's going on. So you can see here, Flourishing is planning their movement. They are moving into position. They got targeted by hatch. They are resolving hatch. Hatch will target Flourishing. Because Flourishing has positioned themselves between hatch and the Neuralink, somebody will go in here, position their body. This hatch is going to move to the body and go off right here. And then Flourishing can go back to baiting the next set of liquid health that we're going to see. So here we go. The red mage is in position. They've intercepted. And Flourishing has continued to bait the subsequent liquid health. This is a common technique that you'll see in PF. If you're It'll take a little bit practice. It's okay, if you mess it up. It's all in good practice. But what is important as fist range, when you're getting into position, is just plan on positioning your body in between Twintania to make sure that that neural link is between you. So going back to the test and video, let's see. So where are we on the timeline? Okay, hatches. Something else that I really want to highlight when it comes to hatches is, in this example, this samurai right here is standing next to the Neuralink, and then this hatch is ultimately going to target, the samurai. And wherever the samurai goes, it's gonna follow him around. So like if the samurai wanted to be cool or whatever, if they're spinning around, then the hatch is gonna follow a path. But what you need to keep in mind is when baiting hatch, it is really important, and we highly recommend that you avoid positioning yourself such that you dodge into the Neuralink with when the hatch is on its way to you. The reason being is because of the way, a lot of things calculate on the server. If you do this kind of movement where once again you intend to dodge towards the hatch, the hitbox of this hatch is actually a little more in front of what you visually see. And so if you dodge towards the hatch, there's a very good chance you're actually going to dodge into it prematurely before you go into the Neuralink, and that'll wipe the raid. What you want to do is you want to be on the side of the Neuralink and dodge such that you move perpendicular to the path that the hatch is moving. That way, you minimize the risk of the hitbox detection um, picking you up at a bad spot, and it's just safer to kind of dodge to the side into the Neuralink instead of dodging inward. So that is the point that I really want to emphasize here when it comes to doing hatches, because I have seen people like trying to dodge towards the hatch, and that causes a lot of problems and often a lot of inconsistencies and wipes. When a person resolves hatch, there is a AoE, there is a blast radius to this hatch going off. Anyone caught in the explosion will die. Um, the only caveat to this is if for some reason you find yourself like you weren't paying attention or you were caught off guard, like if you're a healer and you were picking somebody off up, if you fear that you're going to get caught in the blast radius, what you can do is you can also jump into the hatch with the person, um, and you'll be safe. Like you will take the hatch resolving, but it won't kill you. But if you're not inside that Neuralink, you are going to die, and there's going to be problems down the road. Something you want to keep in mind is if you're sitting in that hatch, there is a 90% damage down. Um, and then due to latency of how moving objects work in the game, once again, you want to dodge from the side. You don't want to dodge towards the hatch to avoid any issues with it going off. As you can see here, there's going to be another round of baited liquid hells going on the machinist. There's going to be a forced tank swap once again, and then she's going to do another hatch sequence. This is really important. You kind of want to use body language to kind of keep an eye on the other DPS player that gets targeted for hatch, because you kind of want to use body language and you want to use your eyes here because you want to avoid a car crash. You want to avoid both DPSs being here and here and then colliding with one another, because if you take more than one hatch after you have your debuff, it's gonna wipe the raid. So you do have to keep an eye out for, like, okay, in this example, this person got tagged, and then off screen ever so slightly, another person got tagged over here. So you would reasonably conclude that these people would take these hatches. You just got to use your eyes and keep an eye out um, when resolving this. I'm also looking through the notes. I'm going to drop a link real quick. If you want to review um, a sample of intercept method for those hatches, I'm dropping a link to the raid plan in the VC chat right now, so you can take a look at that. Moving on, the next threshold, once you resolve these mechanics, is you want to push Twintania below 45%. This is the next phasing for her. So you'll see as soon as she resolves her generate and those are resolved by the players. There's also a twister here too. That's something I forgot to mention. So as these two twisters are going off, I'm sorry, as these two hatches are going off, there are twisters going off. Once she drops below 43% after resolving those mechanics, she will lay down her other neural link, and then the tanks will just, same as earlier, move on to the next neural link position. Sometimes you'll see tanks kind of position her towards the middle. It just depends. But once again, we do recommend, you kind of find the in between space so that you make it easy for the fizz range that needs to bait the liquid hells with their positioning. So that's what we see happening here. So it's going to be 5 liquid hells, and then we're going to get 2 hatches going out. And then this is really important. So at this point, what Twintania is going to do is she's going to randomly target anyone that is not the main threat. So the healers, the off threat, or the DPS, it could be anyone that is not the main threat. They can be targeted by liquid hells, and at the same time she's going to target somebody to resolve the fireball stack. So it's super duper important that, especially as the off threat, as the second tank, or as the melee DPS, if you get targeted by those random liquid hells, it's okay to disengage completely from Twintania and play it safe. If you notice that, oh, I got hit, I'm getting targeted by these liquid hells, um, it is important to disengage and make enough safe space for the other players because they're gonna have to resolve that stack. Um, I've been in scenarios where unfortunately, and not to out the melee DPS or the tank, the off threat, right? But sometimes they panic and they're running around the hitbox, and all of a sudden there's like a lot of puddles around Twintania, and then the party doesn't know where to safely stack for this fireball stack, and this poor person ends up dying. So it is super important that, as this round of generates go out, she will randomly target a person um to bait 5 liquid hells, much like the fizz range has to bait. Super duper important. So I'm letting this play out so we can see it in real time. Once again, these people baited. So in this example, the poor samurai was targeted to bait random liquid hells, even though they just baited their hatch and resolved it. So you see this poor samurai, you know, they are fully disengaged. There's no shot that they're hitting the boss. They're gonna kind of run around, get those 5 puddles out. This fireball stack is gonna make sure that they end up on Twintania's hitbox somewhere where it's clearly visible to the rest of the party so that they can stack. So there we go. You see the poor samurai running around. They gap close. Quintania's fireball stack resolves. And then what she's going to do is she's going to do another death sentence to do a force swap. So the tanks are going to have to swap right here. She will plummet the main threat. So also super important for the tanks. It's really important, as you're doing these swaps, to be very, very mindful of your positioning because remember when she does plummet, it is a wide conal. If you, for example, let's pretend. So here's main threat. Off threat is over here. If the off threat swaps, pulls aggro, and Twintania is now facing this way, when she follows up with the plummet, she is going to cleave the Reaper and she is going to cleave this poor Astro right here. So it is super important as a tank that you're very mindful to point her away from the party um, to avoid making anyone unhappy. So here we go. You notice that the warriors moved into position right away. The warrior is going to take a plummet. Again, it's a wide conal. And from here on out, Twintania is going to repeat the sequence of mechanics. So 2 DPS are going to get a hatch. There's going to be a twister with this hatch sequence. So just dodge your twister. and then she is going to plummet the main threat. She's going to target the farthest player out. In this case, it's the machinist off screen, and then she's going to repeat the cycle, and she will eventually enrage. Once you get her to 0, she will drop the Neuralink where she's positioned, and you're going to transition into nail phase. So I'm going to take a quick pause here. I want to invite the staff and the mods to highlight anything that you think is of note, especially because I've been talking for a significant amount of time. If not, I'll go ahead and move on to the next session. So I'll give a moment for anyone to speak up if they want to. If not, then we'll continue on. Okay. So something to keep in mind, once again with UCOB in general, it's very recoverable. There's a lot of opportunities to try to fix a situation. It could get really dicey, but um, when it comes to tanks and Twintania, you want to be mindful about you know keeping an eye on threat, right? Because you're doing forced tank swaps. You want to make sure you look at the mitigation sheet that I'm going to post right here. I'm posting the mitigation sheet in the VC chat. You want to make sure you're keeping track of this, just so that you're not taking some of these plummets or the death sentence, especially the death sentence raw, because it hurts a lot. Like, your healers will be very happy. Something that Foy is saying in the chat is that's super duper important too, is your burst will come up near the end of Twintania. You can send it when you're progging this fight early, and people are dropping left and right because they're getting a handle for the phase, right? It is okay to send your 2-minute, especially if you feel you're at risk of hitting Twintania's enrage. But as you improve, as you get more comfortable with doing Twintania phase and you start seeing nail phase, you should be holding that 2-minute. So you do a 2-minute on opener, you hold the 2-minute that comes up during Twintania, and you use that 2-minute. You're sitting on that 2-minute for the reopener when it's nail phase. That is something that you want to keep in mind. For the healer side of things, so something to bear in mind, especially if this is like your first ultimate, um, there UCOB is from the era of Stormblood. What does that mean? In Stormblood and in earlier expansions, um, bosses have a habit of critting their autos. You're gonna find out very very soon. Is like, one moment you're looking at your tank, they're nice and healthy, they're happy, they're 100% health, and then they get hit with a crit auto, and then another crit auto, back to back, and all of a sudden their health drops really low. So as healer, as you get comfortable with the damage going out, it's okay to play safe, keep your tank nice and mitted, because there will be instances where they just get crit and they take a sizable chunk of their health. And let's see. Once again, I'm going to post, if you are planning on playing Fizz range, you'll typically be expected to bait these liquid hells. I'm going to post a link to the video from that I referenced from Flourishing Sorrow. It's an excellent video to get a visual representation of what the Fizz range baiting looks like. Please take a look at this, especially because in the video you can see Flourishing doing the intercept method as the Fizz range, and also you can see the timeline of them baiting the liquid hells as things move along. So I posted that in the chat. So from here on, we go into Heaven's Fall transition. Sorry, I'm just hopping around. And the way Heaven's Fall transition is very simple. There's going to be a large spike that falls in the center. If you are inside that spike, you're going to die. When this spike lands, there will be a knockback that that plate, that emanates from the spike falling on the ground. So what the party will typically do is they will clump up on delta marker, and they're gonna get punted towards the wall. And then as they're punted towards the wall, people will spread because Nail will do a set of meteor streams. She's going to hit 4 people at random, and then she's going to hit another 4 people at random. Um, so please take a look at this raid plan to see how to resolve this. It's not too complicated, but what is important to keep in mind is we have a recommended set kind of configuration of spreads that we generally recommend people. And the most notable point is if you're a healer. So like again, we start at delta marker, we get punted towards the wall. If you're a healer, you can kind of chill close to where you got punted, because as you get punted, the party also takes a lot of damage. As healer, you need to get heals out ASAP. You want a shield, you want people as close to 100% health, if not at 100% health, so that as they're fanning out and they take their meteor streams, they take the nail dives, they don't die to damage. So typically the healers will chill out, hang out here. Um, the person who was main threat on Twintania is gonna hang out around the purple marker, because at the end of the Heavens Fall transition, Nail is gonna land on the main threat, and that'll start off the phase. For the range and melee and the off threat, you can kind of chill around the Heavens Fall spike. What is important is just very simply do not overlap. Make sure you spread. The raid plan goes over this general configuration that's nice and clean, just to minimize deaths. Um, if for some reason there is a person who died going into this phase, either during Twintania or they get punted into the wall for some reason, that's okay. But if there is a person who dies, the way meteor streams work once again is meteor streams will randomly target 4 people, and let's pretend this person is dead. Let's pretend R4 is dead. So for first set of meteor streams, 4 people are going to get randomly target, and then another set of 4 people are going to get randomly target. There is a risk. Effectively, somebody's going to get doubled up, and there is a risk of that person dying. So as a healer, if you find yourself in a position where, somebody's dead and it's Heaven's Fall transition and the meteor streams are going out, as healer, your top priority is to keep yourself alive, because there's a risk that you're going to get hit by 2 meteor streams and that can easily kill you. You need to keep yourself alive by healing yourself so that you can go pick up the person that died down the line. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. There's a lot of chat going on in the Discord chat. For the purposes of time, I'm going to continue letting the staff and the volunteers respond to the questions, because there's a lot of wonderful questions going on in there. But this is Heaven's Fall transition. So once again, you push Quintania to 0%. She lays down her Neuralink. The party will move to purple marker. For NAUR, it's delta marker right here. In the test and video, it's a 4 marker, but effectively it's the purple marker. You're gonna move there. You're gonna get punted into the wall, or not into the walls. Excuse me. You're gonna get punted towards the wall. So here we go. We're going into transition. So people are punted towards the wall and they're doing their spread. Once again, so this is really important. Tested's video is excellent, beautiful visual representation. Because they are based in EU, our strats are going to differ from how they execute the fight. So please, once again, look at the raid plans for the NAUR to make sure you are consistent to how we're doing the fight. And if anything, what I think I'll do right here real quick is show a POV from me. So let's see. So please excuse me while I scroll through the timeline. Okay. So here we go. On my end, I was just running like a madman. So you see the 4 meteor streams going off. There are gonna be peaks slices going off too. Do not stand in the peaks slices because it'll either kill you or it will apply a paralysis and make you very unhappy. Um, and the peaks slices will alternate. So there's the first set of peaks slices, and then we have the second set of peaks slices going off, and the 4 meteor streams, the 4 other meteor streams going off. Main threat on Delta marker is gonna pop their invulnerability, and you see Nail landing right on main threat right there. As soon as she lands, she's gonna do Bahamut's Claw, a multi-hit tank buster on the main threat. Because the tanks typically invuln her landing on the tank, the multi-hit buster is usually not a problem. What is important to know for the healers is this hurts a lot, especially if the port tank doesn't have mitigation for some reason. So keep an eye on that tank. So going back here to the Tessin video, once again we've been knocked back, and then people are dodging the peaks slices. Let's see, dodging peaks slices, and then right here you can see that once again my headset has died. I'm turning it back on. It's because I'm talking for an extended amount of time without letting audio play on my end. Okay, and then as you can see here, main threat is going to get hit by Nail. This also does. There's a blast radius to this too. So if you are too close to the tank, that will most certainly kill you if you're not a tank in that vicinity. So stay away from main threat. Nail's gonna land. She's hitting the main threat with Bahamut's Claw, multi-hit tank buster. And it's at this point right here. I'm gonna swap to the other POV real quick. It's at this point right here is we're in our reopener, we're in our 2-minute. She starts casting Bahamut's favor. As she starts casting Bahamut's favor, what's gonna happen, and then I'll bring up my game right here. So we're in my game. I'm gonna move this along. Okay, cool. I'm gonna let this forward a little bit. Right here. So she's gonna land on the main threat right here. And then you see the main threat getting hit with Bahamut's Claw. She's going to cast Bahamut's Favor. As she's casting this, there's going to be 5 dragons that appear on the field, as you can see here. These dragons are really important because they come into play throughout Nail Face, and also for one of the final sequences of Nail Face that is often a challenge for a lot of people to learn, but it's also really important to learn and execute. So there's going to be dragons that apply Doom on the party list. There will be an ice dragon and a fire dragon. The ice dragon will randomly go through the list and hit people exactly once each round with ice. And then there will be a dragon that will send out a fire tether on a person such that when that tether snapshots and expires, there will be like a fire AoE going off on the person. You're gonna need throughout Nail Phase, you're gonna need to monitor when you have ice and fire to make sure that you cleanse your ice debuff, because if you sit in Nail Phase with the ice debuff long enough, you're at high risk of dropping dead if you don't cleanse it with fire. Throughout Nail Phase, what we will typically do is there will be 4 fire tethers. We will resolve the first fire tether in such that the party stack gets it. The second fire tether we will resolve typically out, meaning the person will need to make sure they're not near the party stack with that fire tether. The third fire tether we're going to resolve in, and the last fire tether in the phase we're going to resolve in. Um, that's generally how you resolve fire, and it's to make sure that, assuming people are not dying left and right, people are able to safely cleanse the ice debuff that gets applied on them throughout the phase. There is a dragon that will apply Thunderstruck Lightning on two random players each time it goes out. Those players are responsible for looking at the party list, looking at their debuffs specifically, and making sure that before that debuff expires that you're not anywhere near the party, because if you are, you're going to make the party very unhappy. You're going to zap them, they're going to get paralysis if they survive, or you'll just straight up kill them. With that said too, in nail phase, what's often a challenge is nail is set up that such that she will punish you by punishing someone else in the future. What does that mean? Each time somebody dies during nail phase, um, the ice dragon will tend to randomly retarget onto someone and apply the ice debuff, quote unquote, out of order. There is a risk where if you are already holding an ice debuff and somebody dies, there is a risk of that ice dragon all of a sudden hitting you again with the ice debuff and instantly killing you. So that is something to keep in mind. With lightning, everyone is assuming there are no deaths in nail phase. The way lightning works is everyone will be selected to resolve lightning once, but if you have people dying, similar to the ice dragon, the lightning will also start to randomly target, people that um, may have already resolved lightning. It just depends on what's going on. So that's what's going on with nail face throughout the whole sequence. Let's see, let me go into the Tessin video. So what we end up doing is at the start is once she's done with her multi-hit tank buster, she casts Bahamut's favor and the dragons are out. The sequence starts playing out. So once again, looking at the party list, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here and highlight it. You need to pay attention. There is a very specific animation that will play out if you are assigned lightning. This is personal responsibility. There are no callouts for this. You have to get into the habit of knowing how to read your debuffs and making sure that if you are selected for lightning, that you resolve this accordingly. So you're going to see, let's see, you're going to see people targeted for lightning. There are some elements here that I'm skipping forward. I just want us to focus on that lightning debuff right now. So as you can see here, both tanks, Tessin and their co-tank, are targeted. So what they need to do is they need to not overlap with each other and make sure they're not in the party stack. So here is a lightning debuff person, here's the lightning debuff person, and here's the party stack. You effectively are going to create what we like to call the Mickey Mouse, so that when this resolves, it'll look like a Mickey Mouse when it's going off. Super duper important, and those puddles are big, as you can see here. This is why it's so important not to overlap. There is a very important detail that I just glossed over that I promise I'll go over. So what do we have? We have lightning. We're gonna have to resolve doom. We're gonna have to resolve ice and cleanse the ice with fire by taking the fire in, out, in, and in. And on top of all of that, Nail is going to go through a series of quotes that you're going to have to get into the habit of reading. So let's see. Thank you. So I see one of the staff is highlighting the quotes. Please post it in the VC chat. In the VC chat, Frey is going to copy and paste the quotes. And it's super duper important that you either memorize the keywords in the chat. I'm sorry, in the quotes, or you get really, really comfy with reading her little text box. Um, right here. I'll just scroll back. Because Nail goes through a series of very specific sets of quotes depending on which quote she's in. So for nail quote 1, you will always resolve an in. She will do a donut, and you will resolve either an out or a stack. So once again, it's her first quote is always in at the start, followed up by a stack, or you have to go out because she's going to cast Iron Chariot, and you have to outrange the Iron Chariot. In this example, in the Tessin video, she's saying, "Oh, Hallowed Moon, shine you the iron path," meaning, "Oh, Hallowed Moon," that is in, that is the first part of the quote, and then the second part of the quote, "Shine you the iron path," the keyword iron being Iron Chariot, meaning you have to outrange it for the second part of the quote. So lightnings are going to get resolved. She said her quote very early on too. The quote's gonna get, so the first part of the quote resolves right there. So that's the in. And then she's going to resolve the out. So right here, let's see. Testin's reviewing the resolution of mechanics, but I'm gonna go into my POV real quick. So once again, in this example, what she in this example, what Nail is saying is, "Oh, Hallowed Moon, take fire and scorch my foes." What she's telling us, the first resolution of her quote is in, followed by a stack in this example. So she's going to resolve her in as the as the lightnings spread, and then we are going to stack in this example. If she said, "Oh, Hallowed Moon," and then told us Iron Chariot, so we will resolve in, and if it's Iron Chariot, then we have to make sure we outrange her, the AoE radius of her chariot. What is nice about Nail Phase is, once again, she goes through a very specific set of quotes, and depending on which quote she's in, you have a set number of possibilities. So again, in quote number 1, it's always going to be an in, followed up by a stack or out. In quote number 2, let me see if I can find it. You'll have to pay attention because sometimes she'll want you to be in and stack, or sometimes she'll have you stack and then move out. You have to pay attention for that second quote. For the third quote, it's going to be a light spread, followed up by either moving in or out. And for her last quote, or I'm sorry, not the last quote, but the fourth quote, is going into the dive bomb sequence, which we'll get into later. So as you're resolving that first set of quotes, you'll see these large white puddles. These are called Wings of Salvation in the damage log, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And thank you so much for the folks that are sharing the quote paths that she can go through. Please make note of this because it's super duper important. I highly recommend you make flashcards for yourself or get really comfortable with how her quotes are going out, because it is a lot to learn in the first time, and it's okay. You know, it's nail face is often one of the first walls of UCOB for a lot of people. But as you're resolving her first quote, you're bringing that fire tether. This fire tether that you see is the very first fire tether. That fire tether needs to be in, meaning the party stack needs to get hit by this fire tether. At the same time, a large white puddle, Wings of Salvation, will randomly target onto somebody, and then as that white puddle resolves, it's going to leave behind a small white puddle. This small white puddle that we see is for the people who have Doom, and I'll go ahead and highlight them real quick in the party list for them to soak. So as we can see here, these people who have Doom have to sit on this little white puddle in order to cleanse their Doom. If they don't do so, they're going to insta die. And the way Doom assigns is in 5-second increments. So for the first Doom, it's 5 and 10 seconds. Later on, when you see Doom as the phase progresses, 3 players are going to get tagged at 5, 10, and 15 seconds. Um, Also, really important, um, if you are not responsible for cleansing that Doom, do not sit in that puddle. Otherwise, you're going to eat the Doom that the person needed to cleanse, and that poor person's going to die. Um, and once again, you you resolve Doom with respect to your timer. So if you have 5 seconds as a Doom player and you have 10 seconds as a Doom player, the player with the 10 seconds should not eat the first puddle. That first Doom puddle cleanse is for the person with the 5 seconds because obviously they have less time. They are going to die if they don't get that puddle right away to cleanse. Um, it's it's super duper important that you keep track of your debuffs and you move accordingly. So first cleanse is going to move into position. What we typically do is while that's resolving, and as you can see here, this larger white puddle is going to resolve such that it's going to leave behind a small white puddle for the second cleanse. What we do is we usually clump on Twintania, and we typically move in a clockwise fashion so that we can keep uptime, and we're also dodging these large white doom puddle, these wings of salvation that are going off. Um, it's a lot of pandemonium. I love it. But so as you can see here in the testing video, they are highlighting the first cleanse needs to cleanse, followed by the second person. So here we go, the large white puddle snapshot left behind the little white puddle, and then the second person's cleansing. They got their cleanse. As soon as the cleanse is resolved, Nail will start hitting the port tank with Bahamut's Claw yet again, the main threat. And then we'll see the second fire tether. The second fire tether will usually need to be out of the group. Notice where this person is positioned. They are not in the party stack. They are away from the party. The party stack's over here hitting Nail. When this, snapshot happens, they'll be out of range. If for some reason something went wrong with that first fire tether at the beginning of Nail, sometimes if you are in a position where you are fire tether out and you see people frantically running at you, let them run to you. If you see people running at you at full speed, even though you are quote unquote out, you need to let them come to you because there's a good chance that they missed the first fire tether and they're trying to get hit by your out fire tether so that they can keep themselves alive. Because if they miss the second fire tether, and they're still in possession of ice, there's a high chance that they're gonna die in the next few seconds. So I do want to say once again, first fire tether in, second fire tether out. We're currently seeing second fire tether. And once again, as fire tether out, if you see people running at you, do not run away from them. Let them come to you. There's a reason they're running at you, and it's because they're trying to keep themselves alive. So fire tether is going to resolve out for the second fire tether. There you go. And then this is a very, very special note. If you were targeted by a fire tether and you had to take, you were fire tether out, you were second fire tether, in the future for the third fire tether that's going to be in the party stack, you'll need to pay extra attention and make sure you stay out of that fire tether, just because if you're sitting with the party stack and you take that third fire tether in, um, you will very likely have that fire debuff still from the previous one, and you'll drop dead. Because if you double up on ice or if you double up on fire, you insta die. So as second fire tether out, you need to pay extra attention to what's going on with your body in that moment in time. Um, so once again, Bahamut's Claw, second fire tether out. Party is pre-positioning and stacking. And this is subtle. This is why Nail Face is so much fun. I'm gonna blow up the party list, and then I'm gonna scroll a little bit back. So this is why I absolutely love Nail. Um, second fire tether's out, and then right here you see me I blew up the party list so that we can see it happen in real time. Bam! As soon as that second fire tether is going to resolve, guess what? Two people get targeted by Thunderstruck. They're gonna have to resolve lightning. So here, the Reaper and the Red Mage are gonna have to make sure they're not in the party stack. So you see this board Red Mage, they're gonna move away. You'll see the Reaper. I can't see them in this POV. They'll probably be off over here. They're gonna move away from the party stack. Otherwise, they're gonna make everyone else unhappy if they take that in there. So the Reaper ran over there. So they ran in this direction. There you go. On the other side. And while those people are resolving the lightning, Nail is gonna do her wonderful thing and do another quote. In this example, what Nail is saying is, and I'm gonna play this back, so please forgive me as I'm like frantically jumping around. Lightnings are out. Lightnings are moving out. That second fire moves back into party stack. Nail is gonna say her quote, and then her quote is, I'll blow it up right here. Her second quote is "Blazing path lead me to iron rule." So what this means is stack for the first part of the resolution of the quote, then move out. That is what you're resolving. You are resolving Thermionic Being, stack, and you are resolving Iron Chariot for the second half. So that's what you're going to see here. The party stack is nice and clumped up. She can also do a stack and in. Once again, why it's really important that you pay attention. And as you can see here in the Tessin video, they're going over the different possibilities for quote number 2 in Nail Phase. This is a lot, y'all, but we're almost there. So we're gonna resolve a stack right here, and then we move out to outrange the Dynamo. And then once again, we repeat the sequence in a similar fashion that we did earlier. A Doom Puddle goes out. And then please excuse me, I'm going to highlight this party list right now. We're going to have Dooms assigned, but instead of 2 people, we're going to see 3 people get assigned Doom. So there we go. 3 people are assigned Doom. And as I said at the start, it'll be 5, 10, and 15 seconds. So the person with 5 resolves the first Doom Puddle. Person at 10 resolves second. Person at 15 resolves the third and final Doom Puddle. So that's how it's going to play out. And then once again, we are moving in a clockwise fashion. We're moving in a clockwise fashion around Nail's hitbox to try to maintain uptime. So right here, Tessin's illustrating, the sequence of mechanics resolving for the Doom people. First puddle out, second puddle baited, second puddle out, second cleanse needs to resolve, third puddle out, third cleanse resolves, and we're moving clockwise around the hitbox. And guess what? Once again, as you're resolving this, guess what Nail is doing? Well, guess what the dragons and Nail are doing yet again. So I'm gonna rewind this just a little bit so you can see it. As that first puddle disappears, excuse me, as that second puddle disappears, lightning is assigned as you're moving clockwise. So lightning assigns onto the summoner and onto the machinist. So these 2 people have to pay attention. And as you can see right here, the poor summoner is running away. And then also the machinist is also going to run away while people are cleansing Doom. So here we see the machinist right here in the corner. The lightning people have moved away as everyone else is spinning around clockwise, and then the doom people are cleansing. And then the third fire tether has gone out. So this third fire tether is going to be in. They're going to have to bring this into the party stack. So that's what's going to happen right here. Lightnings have resolved. As soon as lightnings resolve, these people who resolve lightning, if they have ice or if they're neutral, if they have no debuff, have to make sure they book it and get back into the party stack if they need that fire. Because if they don't, they're going to be very sad. The machinists here earlier resolved second fire tether out. Notice that they still have the fire tether, so this machinist is very likely not going to go in. Because if the machinist goes in, there's a high chance that they're going to still possess the fire debuff. And when the third fire in resolves, it can kill them. So let's see what happens here with the machinist. But third fire is in. You can see the machinist is hesitating right here. So like they moved in and then they backed off because they realized, uh-oh, if I get in there, I'm dead. So the machinist is out. So this is why I love Nail's personal responsibility. You have to pay attention to your debuffs, otherwise you're going to get punished if you're not paying attention. As soon as we resolve third fire tether in, there will be Bahamut's Claw. Let's see. And we will do a light spread. So Bahamut's Claw is going off on main threat. The party will pre-position and do a light spread around Nail to prepare for Nail's next quote. It will always be a light spread, followed up by an in or an out. So you see here that Nail is saying from on high I descend, the iron path to walk. So what that means is she's telling you to spread, and then for the second part of the quote, you are going to resolve out. What she can also do is tell you spread and resolve in, resolve dynamo. Something that is super duper important. If you're in a position where you have to resolve light spread in, it is super duper important, especially for the fizz range, especially for the healers, that you do not go to Narnia, like where I'm drawing these little red, these pink dots, that you don't go out here, because if she targets you and you happen to be out here and she targets you and she lands over here, and then for the second part of the quote you have to resolve in, the party's going to be clumped up around her, and if you're out in Narnia, the poor party is going to have to like book it across the map just to safely make it into the inn. So what you want to make sure you do is you lightly spread around Twintania. And if you're like a caster, a fizz range, or a healer, don't go too far out. Just be, at a reasonable distance, so such that when she resolves this light spread, the Raven dive, she's not gonna go to the other side of the world. And as you can see here, Tessin is highlighting, currently with people where they are positioned, um, what the spreads are currently look like and why they need a light spread. Because the way this resolves, and right here, actually, this red mage is starting to, if this was light spread in and she jumped onto this red mage, this poor healer would have had to run across the map. But because it's light spread out, this is okay. But once again, to emphasize that point, she's when she randomly selects a person for Raven's Dive, anyone that's caught in the blast radius is going to get a nasty knockback and they're going to get punted into the wall. So this is why we pre-position and do a light spread. So because she had us resolve a light spread out, you see that poor healer just got caught in the range of the chariot, so they're punted into the wall. As you resolve the light spread and then the second part of the mechanic, she yet again will randomly assign people um, everyone's favorite lightning debuffs. So lightning debuffs went out. That poor healer was assigned a lightning, but they got punted into the wall, so that lightning insta resolved. And then that healer also got assigned uh, the the fourth fire tether that's going to be in. So this is actually a very nice scenario. If a person dies, if you are holding ice and you are holding thunder, and if and when that person dies, you roll the lottery and the ice dragon picks you to get hit by ice when you're in possession of ice debuff, what's going to happen is you are going to insta die. The moment you insta die, your lightning is going to go off. So that's why you see when you see this poor healer get punted, notice there's a little lightning effect that went off because upon death, their lightning instantly resolves. So what I'm trying to say is what makes nail hard, as you're progging it is those kind of instances where a person's holding lightning but they also have ice, somebody dies, they get hit with ice again, and then they explode. And then because they explode, and if they're in the party stack or they're near party members, they also take them with them. And it just rolls downhill from there. The other unfortunate scenario too is that that poor healer had the 4 fire tethers. So as soon as they died, you notice that the fire tether disappears, but the fire tether does not quote unquote go away. It will randomly target somebody else um, and resolve accordingly. So what you're gonna see here is you're gonna see the fire um, land on someone. Here we go, and we're gonna resolve Doom yet again. Um, Something that I like to tell people who are progging this fight and trying to learn the timing of things is by the time you go into 4 fire tether, when you're in a position where you have to like determine what to do with this lightning, as you can see here on the stage, the way I like to frame it is if you have to take fire, but you're in possession of thunder, and you have to take that fire, like you have to take that fire, otherwise you're gonna die. As this thunder debuff reaches 2 seconds, that's approximately when the fire tether will snap the position of its target for you to catch that snapshot so that you resolve fire and then you can immediately and safely move away from the party to resolve your lightning. The timing is tight. It does take practice, but that's usually how I describe it to people. So the lightning debuff is at 2 seconds. You're gonna see this sage will get out of the party stack ASAP. So, and once again, the party is nice and clumped. They're going to move clockwise around the hitbox while they're baiting these wings of salvation that are going to leave behind the little white puddles. So, here we go. Right here. The thunder debuff is at 1 second, and off screen, unfortunately, behind the party list, this sage is booking it away from the party. That's what you see right here. And there you go. The sage successfully moved out of the party. We're going through the sequence of baiting debuffs. I'm sorry, baiting the puddles. And I do want to honor people's time, so we are at 4 minutes until end of until we're at the hour. Because we've been going for a significant amount of time. We're reaching the pretty much the nearing the end of the sequence of nail phase. And then this is the sequence where a lot of folks need some time to understand. But as soon as we resolve this phase, this third puddle goes out, we enter the dive bomb sequence. So what's going to happen is Nail is going to um, have the tanks do a force swap because she's going to cast Raven Speak. And then as she casts Ravenspeak, she will start with a quote. A quote Her quote's gonna go out and people are gonna need to take the dive ball markers, the green orbs on their head, to very specific points on the map. In a prog scenario, the way the markers are set up in such a way that um, you can use the markers to help you how to resolve dive bombs. Please study this. It is super duper important that you understand how to resolve dive bombs because this will often be the choke point where a lot of parties end up wiping because people don't spend time to understand this sequence. So I've posted a link to the raid plan in the VC channel, um, and I'm gonna hop back into the test and POV. So as you can see here, Testant's basically showing you the different configurations of how to solve this um, for the dive bomb sequence. I'm going to show you my POV real quick. So I'm skipping ahead. This is my POV that we're seeing at the moment. Okay, here we go. So we are entering the dive bomb sequence. Okay, so this is light spread. So this is third nail quote. Okay, here we go. So we are entering dive bomb sequence. You can see the main threat is dragging her towards the center. You don't absolutely have to do this, but this is a very nice thing to do because it helps people orient themselves. The way I like to describe preparing for dive bomb sequence is one is true north. You look at one towards the direction of one, and then you start scanning. So what you're gonna see me do is I'm pointing my camera to the number one marker so I can start reading the dragons that are positioned around the map. So I can determine, okay, this is going to be how we resolve the dive bomb sequence, and I'll show you the larger POV so we can take a look at it. But from my POV, when I'm in the middle of combat in the pole, what you're gonna see me do is as I orient myself to true north on the number one marker, you notice I start spinning my camera. So I start spinning my camera clockwise, and what I'm doing is I'm looking at the dragons at the outskirt to make the determination of what the sequence is going to be. To read the dive bombs, it's it's not super complicated, but you kind of have to like treat this like a clock, right? Is once again you orient to true north right here. You look to 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock is true north, and then based on where the first two dragons are going clockwise, those first two dragons are going to dive first. And then I'm drawing this clockwise arrow, as you can see here. So this dragon right here and this dragon right here, these two guys are going to dive first because they're the closest from the starting position clockwise. So what you'll see is the first person will typically, the first dive bomb marker is typically going to take their dive bomb towards alpha marker, such that these dragons are going to get baited and get at this person. That's for the first dive bomb marker. For the second dive bomb marker person, they're gonna bait this dragon right here. I'm gonna draw a square for this little dude. The second dive bomb marker person is going to take their dive bomb marker towards Bravo marker, such that after these two guys right here, the triangle dragons are baited, the square dragon is going to get baited and fly wherever it was that dive bomb marker was positioned when the marker disappeared. And then last but not least, I'm gonna call these the circle dragons. These last two dragons furthest from clockwise position are gonna get baited last by the third dive bomb marker. typically, the third person is going to take the dive ball marker to Charlie marker, such that these dudes are going to cleave where that person positioned on Charlie marker, and this is you're seeing the trajectory of where they're going to position. I'm sorry, where they're going to dive from. Um, this is how, in most cases, you can try to solve dive ball markers. It is super important that you get your bearings at the start, that you look at true north, just so that you have an anchor and you know where A, B, and C are. And then this is how the dragons dive in sequence. The first two dragons, represented by these triangles, are the first pair to dive, followed by this third dragon over here, I'm representing by square, followed by these last two dragons. Um, and the thing that's a little difficult about dive bombs is these dragons could be in any configuration. So you can have a dragon here, you can have a dragon here, you can have a dragon over here, you can have a dragon here and here. Any number of configurations. So it is super duper important that you pay attention to where they're spawning. It is super important that you pay attention to where true north is. And it's super important that in doing so, you understand where the ABC marker is. So this is the quote unquote short and sweet way of doing it. And taking the dive ball markers, first marker to A, second marker to B, third marker to C, will solve a majority of the dive bombs for the different configurations that you'll run into. And with time and practice, as you get more comfortable and master it, there's actually a as long as you fundamentally understand that, how these dragons dive in sequence, over time you'll actually learn how to properly bait these to make a safe scenario. Because with so much practice, with this scenario that I'm seeing, if I was first dive ball marker, I would actually wedge myself here to like cleave. I would wedge myself, around here because that dragon will cleave over there, and then you can wedge yourself here or here. The rule basically is bait the dragons such that they don't cleave the party. And if you're not sure how to properly bait them because you're not comfortable with the spatial awareness and you're still building that for yourself, in most cases you can afford to do A, B, and C. Sometimes the person on B marker will unfortunately die depending on the configurations, but in a prog scenario, this is okay. Something that's also really important that I glossed over. So the way the dives end up working out is, and I'll go back to the bod for reference, is so she's doing the Raven Speed cast. This is a forced tank swap, and then she's going to do a quote. I'm not gonna focus on the quote right now. I just care about dive bombs. So you see this person right here with a dive bomb marker appearing on their head. Once right here, and it was very subtle. Once the dive ball marker on their head disappears, the dragons will glow. When those dragons start glowing, after that marker disappears, that is visual confirmation that the dragons have targeted that person, locked position. It is safe for that person to move away and get away from the hypernovas that you can see here, the black puddles that Neo is throwing at the people who are targeted by dive bomb. So you see her throwing these hypernovas at people. You take a look at the person over here. They're moving into position. And then as soon as this person's dive ball marker disappears, so their marker has disappeared, the dragons have locked position and have committed where they're going to dive. This third person is going to move back to the party, as you can see here. So the person moves in. This first set of dives go off. The second set of dives are gonna go off right now, and then the third set of dives. The second set happened behind my POV. Um, so that's ultimately how you resolve dive bombs for the most part. Once again, the sequence is starting from true north going clockwise. The first two dragons dive first. The third dragon dives next, and the last two dragons furthest from the starting position and going clockwise dive last. So once again, in a lot of scenarios, ABC will do fine. You may lose some people, that's okay. But that's something you need to keep in mind. Okay. I'm very thankful to the people in the chat also going through this because it is super duper important that you get comfortable with the sequence because nail face is a lot is a lot to go through. Once again, after we resolve that fourth fire tether and we're resolving the final set of dooms and the lightnings, once again, nail goes through Raven's Beak. So this is a forced tank swap. She's gonna do a quote. This is, I believe, her fourth quote. Yes, this is Nail's fourth quote. Right now, she's saying fleeting light beneath the red moon scorch you the earth. So what she's saying is, she's gonna have you resolve a stack at the end of the dive bombs. And she is what she's gonna do is she's gonna land on the main threat. People need to stay away from the main threat, and she's gonna have you resolve a stack. The other quote configuration can be she's going to land on the main threat, and you have to be spread because she's gonna do Raven's dive on people. In this POV, she's having you do a stack. Okay. So the dive bombs are resolving. Main threat is moving away. Main threat is going to take Nail's dive right here. And then she's going to follow up with having you resolve the stack Thermionic Beam. In most cases, in a prog scenario, sometimes she'll still be healthy and alive, in which case, after you resolve dive bomb sequence, after you resolve the fourth nail quote, what she's going to do is she's going to do Bahamut's Claw on the main threat. I'm going to skip around the Tessin video for that POV. Hopefully they have it. So in this example, she's going to resolve Dalamud dive on main threat and then a stack, a Thermionic Beam on the party stack. And then in most cases, the parties end up killing her. We're gonna see right here Meteor Stream into Dalamud dive. So she's gonna have you resolve a spread as the dive bomb sequence is going out. So by the time the second, there you go, that second dragon is gonna dive in sequence. The Meteor Stream resolves, and then the Dalamud dive lands on the main threat. And then the third set of dragons dive through. She's going to do Bahamut's Claw. I want to see if Tessin has it in their POV. Once again, in most scenarios, Nail will be dead, but in a prog scenario, if she's still alive and you still have to burn her down, she will do a fifth quote, very much like you saw near the beginning, where she'll have you do a light spread and an out, or a light spread or in, and then she'll have you do another quote where she might have you do a stack and an in, or a stack and an out. You just need to pay attention. And then if she's still alive, she's gonna do another forced tank swap with a Raven's Beak, one more Bahamut's Claw, and then she's going to enrage. And then, so hopefully you've killed her by then. In a prog scenario, like we said in Twin Phase, if she's healthy and your 2 minutes come up, go ahead and burn the 2 minutes just to guarantee you're going to kill her. But once you're in a point in prog where um, your damage is looking good and you're ready to push into Bahamut, you usually want to hold that 2 minute to have it on the reopener for Bahamut. Um, with that said, this covers Twintania and Nail. I do apologize. I was talking for a significant amount of time. We went over time too, so please forgive me for doing so. Um, it is a lot to cover. I sincerely hope this was helpful for all of you. Um, we're really excited to see you all, to get to know you, to work with you on this very special flight. Especially for those of you, this is your first ultimate. You're getting your feet wet. You're trying to learn how these ultimates work. I will say, from me to you, I believe in you. If you want pointers, if you want support, please, please, please talk to us in the UCOP channel. I'm gonna drop a link in the channel right here. Please go to this channel if you have questions in the server. Um, if I have any, if I can offer any tips, please Google POBs. In the mid sheet actually, you have links to VODs as well that you can pull up and take a look at to study to help you out. There is a lot of value in studying in advance, because the thing with ultimates, especially if this is your first ultimate, is you will see the most effective prog if you look at the raid plans, if you look at the VODs, if you ask questions, and before you even set foot, you have a basic understanding of what's going to happen. If you do that, you are going to set yourself up for success. You will experience some points in the fight where it's just difficult, but I'm very confident that if you practice, if you ask questions, if you just, keep practicing, you will improve and you will be successful. With that said, I'm very thankful to all of you for your time tonight. I'm very thankful to our lovely staff, our volunteers, our helpers, the people who are working to make this event happen. In the coming day, you will see parties posted for those that are getting hosted in the scheduled parties. I'm going to drop a link in the VC chat. Please keep an eye out um, for those parties once they come out. And I also want to say, if you find yourself in a position where you're trying to sign up for these scheduled parties and it's really difficult, like you're not having any luck getting into these scheduled parties, your best absolute resource is going to be getting on the PF. Most of the parties happen on Ether Data Center with the general PF community. So I would highly recommend try to get on Ether Data Center, especially on off peak hours if you're able to. Go into the PF and just get in there. That's gonna serve you well, and it's gonna help you the most to be as successful as you can be for this event. But with that said, I wish you I wish you all a lovely night. Thank you so much for giving me your time tonight. If there's any questions, I'll stick around for a few minutes, but please be free. I've taken too much of your time already. Thank you. Okay, let me make sure my headset's still alive. Okay, there we go. And then once again, I really, really appreciate our staff for answering questions and clarifying things as they've been talking as well. I've been glancing back and forth, and it's a little overwhelming to like see like, okay, there's a question there, but I can't respond to it like right away. But so thank you so much. With that said, I believe I saw that somebody mentioned that there is a Twitch stream available. I'm looking at my recording software this moment. OBS, you know, unfortunately crapped out on me. That makes me very sad. So hopefully the Twitch stream is available, and we will make sure we make that publicly available to you all. But yes, please, please, please be free. Ray has posted a link to the Twitch bot. I'm going to save a link of this, and then we'll make sure that this is accessible to all of you. Thank you so much, Ray. I really appreciate you doing that for us. But yeah, I'm seeing people saying that they plan on going on the PF tomorrow. Please, like, get on the PF. You're going to be successful, most successful if you're on the PF and doing your best. Um, uh, and please ask questions too. Okay, let's see. I'm going to stop my screen right here.
Thank you all for watching. I'm gonna
Okay.
end stream here.
For
Oh.
those of you who are staff, would it be okay